Marhaba Craving Palestine family, thank you for joining us. Our guest today is Mohamed Hadid, real estate developer, architect, and artist. Mohamed is also a contributor in our Craving Palestine cookbook. Thank you for joining us, Mohamed.
My dish.
Yes. Two.
I'm so happy actually you put my dish on the cover, so I'm sure everyone else is jealous.
Yes.
But I can assure you that I was not the one who has suggested that should be on the cover. So if you want to blame anyone, you blame this lady right here who created this whole thing. So I did not, I promise you, I told her I should have my face on the cover, not my bami on the cover.
Well, it really does deserve to be on the cover because it has such an incredible story. It's in dedication to our mamas, our tetas, who ingrained us in our love for Palestine and this food.
Absolutely. Well, at least they taught us that Palestinian food is the best Arabic food. So, and I can't dispute that. That's pretty much correct.
Let's start, Mohamed, with your Palestinian story. Can you share with us your parents' roots?
I was born in Nazareth. Actually, I was born in the Nakba time, so 1948. So I am actually probably one of the few left that were born in the state of Palestine, 1948, November 6, 1948, that is. And I was born in my grandfather's house in Nazareth. Pretty much is, I don't know if anybody knows the story of Dahir al-Omar al-Zaydani, who was the leader, or at least at one time, he was a tribal leader and then became the Prince of Nazareth. And he's the one who built most of Haifa, Jaffa, and all of Galilee. So that's my great-grandfather from my mother's side. And I was born there, and then I went from there. When I was 9 days old, my mother carried me to go to Safad, which is where my parents supposed to have lived. My father came from Haifa. Haifa was where my father worked, and we'll go back and forth between Haifa and Safad. I came with my mother and my little sister to our house in Safad, and our house was locked up, and I've never been into my house, never walked in. We never took a single thing out of the house. So they took it pretty much furnished. So we continued walking down some street. I'm sure I remember that, but my recollection, different people told me how my mother and I and my sister walked away from the house, literally without a single piece of clothing on us, except what she had with her at her parents' house. And my father found us later on. He went to a refugee camp I believe in Egypt somewhere. And finally, my uncle Ahmed, who was a doctor, he found us in the UNESCO, and he said, I can find your father, apparently. And then he brought my father to the refugee camps in Syria to be with us. And then my dad worked, he was an educated man. He was an Oxford graduate by correspondence, I think. And so he worked as a professor at the University of Damascus for a little bit. And then he was inducted to the Voice of America, which is part of the United States Information Agency. From there, we traveled. I was young when I was in a refugee camp, so I had no memories of that at all. So we lived a fair life, middle class, with my father as working for the US government, actually, at the time. And then we moved to Lebanon, from Lebanon to Tunisia, from Tunisia to Greece, and then then they offered him a citizenship for the United States with the kids and my grandmother at the time. So that's the that's the story of my exodus. So I'm not sure exactly where you want me to go beyond that, but I still remember my grandmother. I've never met. Actually, I didn't meet my grandfather and my grandmother from my mother's side until almost 17 years later, when they allowed us to meet only on the bridge, and they gave us they call it a 10-minute meet and greet. I remember I sat on the side of the road. I didn't even know who they are. I was maybe 17, 16 years old. I can't recall. And that was the only time. And so then they passed away. But my grandmother from my father's side lived with us in Syria and Lebanon and Tunisia. And then she passed away when we were in Rhodes, on the island of Rhodes, and we buried her there because they would not let us take her remains to where she was born in Safad. So our story is like all the other stories, except each one of them has a different flavor. It's some of us, the ones who are educated, the doctors, the engineers, the brilliant people from Palestine. They were sucked into the systems around the Arab world, from Kuwait to Dubai to Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and they were able to get jobs immediately. But the rest stayed in behind, sadly, which is the farmers, the ones who really worked Palestine. These were stuck in places like all the Syrians, refugee camps, and Lebanese and others. So these are kind of some of us were lucky enough to have education. Not I was a baby, but my dad were able to get jobs. But the rest still there, sitting in Bethlehem and Gaza and God knows where, and around the world. So it's that's the short story of my experience as a refugee outside Palestine. But I have never really experienced it. I did go back to see my great grandfather's house. Actually, I went into the room where I was born, when my mother had me, which is across from where Jesus was conceived, almost 17, 18 feet. They still have, my family still have that. And of course, my grandfather, my uncles and their siblings, they still own that these parts of Dahir Omar Zaidani. At the time was the prince there, and there's a book just came out about him, which is really interesting. The name of it is The Lantern of the King of Galilee and the Prince of Nazareth. It's an interesting book. It's a huge book, and hopefully one day it will be made into a movie, because it's probably one of the first leaders that seceded from the Ottoman Empire, and he decided that he wants to have his own free country, which is Galilee. At the time, there was no Lebanon, Syria, and all the others. So that was the main, he brought all the religions together. Actually, he was one of the few real rulers around the world that went all the way to Izmir and brought a Jewish family, and he opened up he built a synagogue for them in Tabariyas. And these are the things that people don't understand, that we tried to be inclusive. He encouraged the Christians to stay there. He encouraged the Jews to stay there. So he was very modern in he wanted everybody to be under his rule and protect them and all that. So hopefully one day we'll be able to do the same. But so when we went to the States, so we ended up in Washington, D.C. I was 14 or 15 years old. And that's a short version.
How did you manage to stay so connected to Palestine, although you didn't grow up in Palestine?
my parents always said we are Palestinians, and once you are Palestinians, you are Palestinian. You're not anything. It doesn't matter what nationality you have. You're Palestinian. So it's of course, it's ingrained. It's part of our legacy is to have that beautiful background, like how my kids are always saying they're Palestinian. They've never been to Palestine, but they feel so connected to it through me and their grandmother and so on, and my sisters and their kids. We are like a wildflower that has been disconnected from the world, yet it's found. So when my daughter says I am Palestinian Dutch, she feels something of importance, that she has roots from great old roots. It's important to my kids to say they are Palestinian, half Palestinians, half Dutch, half Palestinians, half Americans, wherever it is. But it's we are an exotic plant, and it gives us a little edge, in my opinion, that we are who we are. We know exactly where we came from and how deep our roots are. And we didn't come from somewhere and ended up something. We are Palestinians, we'll always be Palestinians. As far as I'm concerned, I am 100% Palestinian from both sides. So I can't be any deeper than that. So that's it. I am Palestinian, I'm stuck with it, and I love it.
Can you take us through, Mohammed, your first trip back to Palestine?
My first trip to Palestine, I think I was 50 years old. I went for a wedding of a Jewish friend of mine in Tel Aviv. And then from there, I drove to Nazareth. And my whole family came out like to greet me. It was like a homecoming. It was crazy. I was amazed at the amount of love they had for each other, for me, for my mother, for my father, for my sisters, and how when they took me in, it's like I haven't left. And they know everything about me, and yet I didn't know anything about them except from what my mother told me. So we had probably 3 breakfasts, 3 lunches, 3 dinners, and you gain about 20 pounds by the time you get out. But it was so pleasureful to see, and it was so. I was amazed, but I was sad because I see that they're not free. At the time when I first went there, at the time I think some of them never left Nazareth even. They were not even allowed to leave Nazareth, not even to go to. And even though Nazareth at times already was an Israeli, some of them they have gotten, they couldn't even get a pass to go into Israeli territories. So they were just there in the old city of Nazareth. So that kind of was painful. I can feel the pain. I can feel them reluctant to talk about anything. They were just afraid to talk about their life. Even I asked them, why can't you fix your window here? So we're not allowed to fix their windows. Or there was a house next door, which my father had his mayor live there, and it was dilapidated. And I said, let me fix it. They won't let you. So it was one of these things, kind of felt really bad, and I didn't want to expand on it because I know that it's not something that they wanted to talk about anymore. So I enjoyed the day I was there. And then I went again. Actually, I took my friends about 5 years ago. I took my friends around and I showed them where I was born and the church that my great grandfather built for the Christians, the Palestinians, and how he donated. So my cousin has a whole history about his grand or great grandfather. So it shows where Sheikh Daher was all the land in front of him, and behind them he turned it over to the Christian families, to the Christian church, and then they showed me the white mosque where he built the mosque. They took me and showed me. We went to Tabariya, and we showed me where he built the first synagogue for the Jewish family, for the rabbi that he brought from Izmir, and built houses around it for his family and so on. He was encouraging him to bring them in. Actually, he brought in almost from Turkey about, I think, 10,000 at the time. There was only like 5,000 Jews in Palestine at the time, 5,000 or 6,000 in the 18th century, early 18th century. So it wasn't that many. So it was so he was trying to kind of bring all the religions back to where they were all born. So then last year, 2 years ago, again, I went, and that first time I wanted to go see Hadid quarters in Safad, which I have never been, never saw, never got entered. I was 9 days old when I left, and that's when I really, really was touched as how beautiful my father's home and my great grandfather's home, my grandfather's home, all these families who lived there, from my great grandfather to my aunt to my to my father, my grandmother, my mother, my sisters, they lived in that home, and they played in these grounds, and then they were telling me Hasib al-Sabbar lived here, and so and so Khoury lived here, and they were telling me all these people that actually succeeded in life, and they were all, because they all come from wealthy families, and they had, of course, at the time they had money to get education, and all these guys, including my father, were especially the Khoury family and Khoury and Hasib al-Sabah, who built one of the largest construction company in the world, CCC. So a lot of these people who were there, and I saw the Hadid quarters, and it was amazing. That's the one. And the strange thing about that story is that I don't want to be specific, because this is just stories that came from my parents and family around us. And that's later, because my father never really told us about our exodus from Palestine, because he didn't want us to be hurt or hurt anyone, or even have hatred for Jews or anyone else. So I find out later that we actually in 1946, I think, or 45, a ship came from Poland or one of these Eastern European countries that went to Cuba and went to New York, and they wouldn't let them in, and then finally ended up in Haifa, and they rounded up few wealthy families and around the area and stuff and all that, and they asked if they can take some of these families. And my parents took, I believe, 1 or 2 families into our home, and we gave them a guest house, and these are the ones who locked us out. Imagine. At least that's my understanding of it. So it's painful, but I guess that's how the world goes, and we have to continue our journey as we are, and And I was lucky to have a great father, a great mother that kept us Palestinians, kept us Arabs, kept us with our foods, kept us with our religion. You know, my parents were not very, they were very liberal. We were not really a religious family. But my father also said that religion is in the heart, and it's what you do around you and who you help and how generous you are or whatever to the less fortunate. So these are the most important thing, that religion is not just something that you go and pray 5 times or go to Hajj or whatever. It's what you do on a daily basis. That's religion. If that's that we are all religious. So that's kind of like my family. Of course, in our home, we were in the U.S. All my sisters and my sisters and so on, and her kids, they all come to my mother's house, and we're also down and cook. Literally, we will. Everybody is rolling leaves. You know, we have 40 grandkids, and God knows how many. You know, we have 8 kids and several. You know, and everybody brings friends, so we are 100 people, and everybody rolling grape leaves and cleaning the bamia or cleaning the fasoliyah or whatever, or a fool, and you know, and everybody brings a dish in or 2 dishes, and then everybody eats together. So it was a more of a weekly, not weekly, sometimes twice a week. Whenever I'm hungry, I just go to my mother's house, and I see her, and then my mother was one of these. I don't want to say she's socialized, but she is socialized in one way, but mother in another way, where she gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30. She cooks 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and for whoever wants to come in and eat. And then at 10 o'clock, she is all dressed up, ready to go to see her friends, and they go for breakfast, and not breakfast, for coffees and teas and God knows what. And whoever wants to come, the doors is open, the fridge is open. It's always full of food, and we just heat it up and eat it.
What lessons do you carry with you as Mohamed Hadid now that were instilled by your parents, and you hope that your own children and grandchildren will carry?
First, move forward, help others, be a part of your community, build what you can build to help others, not just yourself. I don't know if you know, but I built a little school and a mosque in Northern Virginia, and I think that was because I wanted my kids to learn Arabic, or just to see or to kind of experience the Muslim religion. And of course, I left in 1990, and I never really went back to look at it. And I gave it to someone to take care of it. And when I was giving a small talk at Harvard University a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, somebody got up and said, you know, that mosque has flourished, which I never went back. I was always worried that it has gone under, truthfully, because I thought I finished it and the market has collapsed, and I moved to California, and I never went back to look. And she said, it's now the largest Islamic and Arabic and refugee center in Northern America. And I was like, my hair stand up, my kids were there, I start crying. And so, you know, these are kind of things, little things that your parents install in you, and your sense of community, not just your Palestinians, to anybody who is a refugee like us. And this is why we called it the House of Refugees, Dar al-Hijra. So they installed hard work will get you there. Don't let anything take you down. Don't when you are who you are, people will accept you, and eventually they will respect you. Because if trying to hide You know what always bothered me is some of the Palestinians who never really say they are. They say, oh, we are Lebanese, we're Jordanian, we are this, we are that. I'm so grateful for Jordan for giving me a passport one time without even being in Jordan. I'm so happy for America to give me a place here. But Palestine, when you say you're Palestinian, that's a really deep-rooted human you are. So my father always told us, being a Palestinian is nothing to do with nationality or that's just where your roots came from, and that's that's what made you who you are. Keep your feet down and your chin up. You're Palestinian, yeah. And that's the biggest thing you can be.
Take us, Mohammed, through your choice of career. You're an architect, real estate developer, and you're also an artist.
Whatever is possible. I worked until I got to college, and then after that, I was lucky enough to find opportunities where I was able to develop my skills and my life and my, of course, I got married twice in my life, and I had 2 amazing ex-wives and 5 beautiful children and grandchildren now. My daughter just had a baby. My Gigi just had a baby, so I'm now a new grandfather as well. So I think at my age, I have accomplished what I want, and I have a legacy in my kids that that's all I feel I have achieved in life. That I have kids that they have strong wings and very steady feet to land on. So for me, that's my legacy, and the rest is comes and goes.
Circling back to the cookbook, Mohammed, why did you specifically select bamia and kibib al-laban?
Actually, I did, not because of anything. I think no one really was able to actually capture that the certain flavors in, it's I remember a friend of mine from Dubai, she said, I just trying to make bamia, and it did not come out like that. And I remember that, and I said, you should buy this book because it has the bamia that, and I didn't tell her to buy it. I'm gonna send it to her, and I forgot all about it. So now, if she's watching this, I'm gonna send you the book. She thought, you can just cook with the bamia and saute it and put some salt and pepper and some tomatoes and you got it. Pretty much that's the 3 ingredients that makes it bamia, but it's not. There's so many other things. You have to kind of lightly saute it so you can burn the end. And it has to be a certain size, and all these things are these little things that makes a bamia. And the way you cook it separately from the meat, and you cook the sauce separately, and all these things come together the way my mother used to do it. And I'm not sure that everybody does it either. I'm not sure all the Palestinians do it, but the way I tasted it is the way my mother made it, and her grandmother made it, and my grandmother from my father's side made it, because my mother and my grandmother, and they always say you eat with your eyes and you taste with your mouth. So it's we always create a dish that looks good. Why my kids know how to cook Arabic food, and they know how to make different dishes, Arabic dishes. The same thing, Gigi and Bella and Anwar and Marielle and Alana. They really understand the food and they still cook it.
In your opinion, and like from your family, your grandkids, yourself, your children, what would be your top 5 Palestinian dishes?
Oh, for sure, grape leaves. First, because all my kids, even until today, I make grape leaves for Gigi and Bella. I pack it into little packages, and I send it to them by Federal Express overnight delivery. and they take the packet and they put it into hot water, put it in a, and then put the whole packet in hot water, warm it up, drop it into a dish, put some yogurt next to it, and eat it.
Yum.
They love grape leaves. That's one of their favorite. My son's favorite dish is kibbib saniye, and he loves stuffed cabbage. That's his favorite. He takes one at a time, even just 2 pieces out. He puts them for 10, 15 seconds in the microwave, and he goes, that's his dinner. So these are the things I see them do. And they, when they're here, when they come, I make beautiful breakfasts for them. I make them, I call it Palestinian dishes, but that's what my mother used to make. So she makes 10, 15 different things, and the hummus and the baba ganoush and the za'atar and the all. I do sometime video call, and last year about this time, I would do some video calls with my daughters. I teach them how to make ma'lubi and how to make this and how to make that. They teach me too, by the way, how to make things that I don't know, like lasagna. I said, I don't want to cook lasagna. I can buy that. You need to make it at home. So they teach me. So they teach me what they know, and I teach them what I know, and hopefully that they teach their kids, and the kids teach their kids, and that's all we have to pass on.
Yes.
Pass on your culture to your kids, and they'll keep their culture alive.
Mohamed, what is your hope for Palestine and Palestinians?
What I wish for Palestine is prosperity for the Palestinians, to be able to live equally free. I believe in the coexistence. I don't believe that we are in a time in this world that Palestine could be just Palestinians or just Muslims or just Christians. Just be the way we were, thousands of years ago, where there was Christians or Muslims and there was Jews, and that's it's a equal freedom. That's all I'm looking for my Palestinian brothers and sisters, and also the Israelis. I think they need peace. We need peace. We all need to coexist together and live happily ever after, because that's the way life is.
Palestine in one word.
Palestine in one word is the kingdom of all kingdoms.
Mohamed in one word.
Just Father.
Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us today and being so inspiring, and thank you so much for being part of our Craving Palestine cookbook. You're one of the first to join this. Thank you. You're one of the first actually to join this community-driven project.
Thank you.
And
well, I was delighted and honored. Really, I was. I mean, it was really an honor for you to even think of me as to have one or two of my dishes. But something, it's not about me or you. It's really about culture, heritage, and our life as Palestinians. Hadid family loves you all.